Good morning, legislature is back in session. When we last left, we were on Bill 202-38 COR, and Senator Perez, you had the floor, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning. So the first amendment I'd like to proffer is line 12 to 15, page 3. It says to amend section 56102C1 of the bill to read, qualifying veteran means a person who at the time of entry into the U.S. Armed Forces was a resident of Guam and officially declared Guam as their home of record. And so when I initially saw this bill, I was kind of concerned, like, are we allowing this? Are we going to pay for the incoming military that are coming in, like 15,000 plus? Is this going to apply to them? And so that was my concern, that we are opening, creating this unfunded mandate, potentially a huge unfunded mandate, considering in light of the amount of military personnel relocating from Okinawa to Guam. And so I think with this amendment, it's reinforcing the fact that we are looking to support people that are from Guam, that call Guam their home, or at least were residents of Guam and call Guam their home, versus opening the door to a veteran that relocates here and doesn't necessarily have ties or roots to Guam. And so I just wanted to strengthen this part of the bill, and I ask for my colleagues' support.
On the amendment, found on page 3, lines 12 to 15, it's AB 202L12-15P3 SFP. Okay, are there any discussion on the amendment? Any discussion on the amendment? No discussion on the amendment? Any objections to the amendment? No objections? So ordered. Senator Perez, you still have the floor, ma'am.
Okay, the other amendment that I'd like to proffer would be to add a new section 56102F to the bill to read. So it adds a definition. Tuition-paying students means those students who pay tuition fees and or utilize student loans receive federal government tuition assistance, such as federal student aid, utilizes an awarded scholarship, and or receive tuition waivers or assistance on the account of age eligibility. So it just basically clarifies what a tuition-paying student is, and also includes the waivers. As you know, there is seats available for people who are Manumco, so 55 and older. So I didn't want them. I wanted to preserve that the space for our Manumco, and I just wanted to ask for my colleagues' support on this.
Okay. On the amendment, AB 202L6P4 SFP, found on line 6, page 4. Any discussion on the amendment? Any discussion on the amendment? No discussion on the amendment. Any objection to the amendment? No objection to the amendment? So ordered. Ma'am, you continue.
Okay, so the next amendment I'd like to proffer is basically states to add a new section 56104D to the bill to read, upon completion or termination of the tuition waiver, the recipient shall be required to render service in a department, agency, office, autonomous or semi-autonomous instrumentality of the government of Guam, or in the judicial branch of the government of Guam. The required length of service shall be a period for 2 years for every academic year of waivers received by the recipient. The recipient, however, may opt to monetarily reimburse the government of Guam for all expenses waived by the institution that incur the cost for the recipient in connection with such waiver. And so this is something that we have as a practice, for instance, with ProTech scholarships, that, you know, recipients of ProTech scholarships have to come back to Guam and provide service in return for the money that we invested in them. And so this is aligned with that practice. And should the individual decide they'd rather not provide the service, they can opt to pay for it, pay for the tuition that we invested in this individual. So I look forward to my colleagues' support in this measure. Thank you.
On the amendment, sen- gentleman from Berrien, ma'am, sir, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, I get the intent of the amendment and what the author is trying to do in regards to, ensuring that the service or the some kind of, we'll call it a debt, right? Because we're talking about veterans, is paid back to the government of Guam. But I think you're asking them to do something that they have already done. To say that because I'm going to give you this benefit because of your service and the sacrifices that you've made, I'm also going to ask you to go, you have to work for the government of Guam. And I get it. I understand the intent. But as a veteran, as a very, I like to consider us a very sensitive group of individuals when it comes to what we want to do after we get out. I think restricting them to just working for the government of Guam, I think their debt has already been paid. So to ask them to repay another debt, or what we're calling a debt to the government of Guam, or having them to repay something that we're trying to pay them back for, defeats the whole purpose and the intent of this bill, Mr. Speaker. So I'm going to have to object. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Vice?
Mr. Speaker, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Speaker, I have to agree with the retiring speaker on the concern, and I get the amendment that we want to be able to be consistent with other waivers or other areas that we provide this benefit to. However, there's a couple of things that other than in this case, this is going to be provided to individuals that have served, that have already provided a service. And also, when you're looking at what this new requirement would be, you have to take into consideration some of these veterans that are going to probably benefit from this. Have gotten a disability rating that may restrict them or prohibit them from other employment. And so do we now, based on this amendment, if this were to pass, do we now tell them that although you did serve, thank you for your service, and as a result of your service, you now have a disability that restricts you from government employment or employment in the government of Guam, or you're going to lose that benefit as well. So it's a slippery slope when we decide to be able to do this. And again, we normally have this provision for those that are aspiring to go into service. But this is a benefit that we're providing to individuals who have served already. Okay? In order to qualify for this, you had to serve in the military. You had to have already done your service. So I join the retiring speaker in respectfully objecting to this amendment. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There's been an objection on the amendment. Ranking Barnes, Member Munya Barnes, you're recognized.
Si Zeus Masi, Mr. Speakers, and Manana Si Zeus to our colleagues and to the listening audience. And Mr. Speaker, as I look at this amendment and share the comments from the original author and the retiring speaker, our Speaker Blas, I just want to share that we have seen successes in the past with other programs that we've given the opportunity for our community to engage in, like the Barada Act, which gives an opportunity for scholarship programs and incentives on the condition that when they come back home, and because of what was provided for them in the scholarships, that they come and work for the island of Guam. Not just specifically in government. We also have scholarships that you have to work for the government of Guam. But I think if we look at the efforts of this amendment, and I understand the good senator from Barragata proffering this amendment, I think I could probably look at two possible amendments to the amendment, and one would be that requiring upon a completion of this tuition waiver, that the requirements shall be required to render service to the island of Guam. Maybe one, and the second one is as we look at the period. For every academic year of waivers received by the recipient, that we do a total of a number of years, because if you look at this annually, it would be 2 years for each year, so 6 years in total, or maybe even, right, 2, 4, 6, 8. So, Mr. Speaker, maybe a couple of minutes I can verify that with the author of the amendment, and to see. Because maybe we could just leave it open to 2 years in general and not 2 years per academic year.
Let's take a recess.
Maybe a minute recess. Thank you.
Legislature is back from recess. Ranking member from Bago Bay, ma'am, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for the time. Truly working with the author of the amendment. She has, the legal counsel has helped us revise an amendment, so I yield the floor back to you and hoping that this new proffered amendment to come about will work better. Jesus Masi for giving me the opportunity to speak.
So it's going to be the author of the amendment to...
Yes, sir.
The
The
amendment
amendment
to the
is in her name.
Okay,
Thank you.
on the amendment to the amendment, Senator Paris?
Okay, thank you. I would like to withdraw my previous amendment and proffer this newly,
Okay.
or sorry, amended version.
On the motion to okay, withdraw the previous amendment, okay, and then now for this amendment to be in its place. Any objections? No objections, so ordered. Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. So this amendment basically would, it states that I would like to proffer states, upon completion of an applicable certificate or degree, the recipient shall be required to obtain employment on Guam. The required length of service to be rendered under this program shall be equal to the length of time necessary to complete the certificate or degree, but in no event shall such service be longer than 2 years. The recipient, however, may opt to monetarily reimburse the government of Guam for all expenses waived by the institution that incurred the costs for the recipient in connection with such waiver. And so I think this is really important because, we're at a time where, the federal government has the ability to pay for tuition for the veterans and their dependents up to 10 years, according to the GI Bill. And so local dollars are dwindling fast, and we're told that we're going to hit a cliff when the military buildup stops. And so we have to be, frugal, think about how we can get the return on our investment. I know with veterans, they've served in the military, but we need every dollar to come back to Guam and serve this island, and all that you've learned in your career to bring back to our island, to make our island better. And many veterans come to Guam with that intent in mind. They want to make our island better. They serve, they often volunteer. And I think 2 years is a good amount because, Protect does require 2 years service, and that's not, unreasonable. The other thing this amendment does, it allows for even lower amounts based on the amount of educational requirement or education that's needed. Let's say they finish their GI, they've completed their GI benefits. All they need, let's say they need is 5 more credits to get a degree. So we don't want to behold them to anything that we did not put money towards. And so it does allow for that flexibility. Because this is a supplement to their GI benefits. And we want to encourage them to continue to come back and serve our island in the civilian arena, whether it be public or private sector. And again, we know that brain drain is real, and we need to keep our people here to continue to build our island up. So Jesus Masi, I hope to get my colleagues' support on this. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. On the amendment, Jim, ranking member from Bago Bay, ma'am, you're recognized.
Jesus Masi again, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity, and this time on this amendment that's proffered by the senator from Barrigada, that it works within the prerequisites that I wanted to work with, which is upon completion of the applicable certificate or degree, the recipient shall be required to obtain employment on Guam, and not just within the government of Guam, but anywhere on the island of Guam, and that the length of service to be rendered under this program should be no longer than 2 years. And again, as we talk about the brain drain, as we talk about trying to keep our residents, our returning residents, our veterans, and those who call Guam home, right, and have been able to serve, but also to get these kind of waiver services, I think a little can go a long way to giving back to the island of Guam. So I'm going to support this amendment, and I want to thank the good author of this amended version and ask that my colleagues support the efforts. So I know that there may be a concern about services already rendered by the veteran or by the soldier or by the airman or the military personnel, that they've already done their time. But I think that in this effort, as we look at providing the resources to get education here, I'm just hoping that my colleagues will understand that it's just a safety net to keep them here for that period of time after they've rendered the program and have been successful to it. And it also speaks, Mr. Speaker, about that the opportunity for that veteran to pay back if they wanted to reimburse the government if they didn't want to complete the program. So I'm in support of this measure. Sinamasi.
Thank you, ma'am. On the amendment, any other wishes? Colleagues, remember, okay, the first amendment was withdrawn. This is now, okay, a new amendment. It's not an amendment to the amendment. This is a new amendment. Okay, so the objection to the first amendment does not stand. Okay, now there is an objection to the second, okay, to this amendment. Are there any other colleagues wishing to speak on the amendment? No other colleagues wishing to speak on the amendment? Senator Parrish, you want to close?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, it's unfortunate that there wasn't any opportunity to dialogue as far as what the consideration, as far as the objection is concerned. I think we need to look at the future for Guam and what does the future hold, and how are you going to utilize our workforce. And it's important that for any tuition waiver that we require those that get these tuition subsidies or waivers have an opportunity or payback to their community. I think this is part of our, what are the values that we have as Chamorro people, as people of this island, is we give back. We give back to those who raised us. And I think that this is just a continuation of those values. Yeah, it doesn't, yeah, I think that's just my general comments about this amendment. And yeah, to ensure, I think moving forward when we talk about the value in general, I think education is one of the most things that we spend upon, and UOG is even considering increasing tuition for the general public. And so we need to also think about that. Are we going to provide this privilege when we can't afford it for the general population? And I think this is only reasonable. So I ask for my colleagues' support. Thank you.
Okay, on the amendment, AB 202 L13 P7 TMB, in parentheses 1, there has been objection to the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment, please indicate by raising your hand. Amendment fails. Senator Perry, you still have the floor.
This next amendment is on page 7, lines 4 to 7, and it amends Section 56106B2 to read, submit a report to the Legislature in Guam no later than 90 days after the end of each academic year detailing the number of beneficiaries served and total number of credit hours exempted. So this amendment would add total amount of credits failed or withdrawn and repayment received, if applicable. List the types of undergraduate, graduate degrees that recipients enrolled in, and the calculated value of tuition waived. So this again would add a little bit more detail to see how this program is working. And I just think that, yeah, with every dollar that we're putting into our universities, it's important that we know how it's being spent, especially in considering that this could impact tuition and how better to use our dollars. I know UOG is probably seeking more money. They're going to be seeking more money, and we need to know, and we may not even have the revenues to support this. So we need to look and see evaluate our programs with more precision. And I ask for my colleagues' support.
Senator Perez, is this for lines 4 to 7, page 7? Yes? Okay. On the amendment, AB 202L4-7 P7 SFP, lines 4 to 7 on page 7. Any discussion on the amendment? Gentleman from EPAN, sir, you're recognized.
Mr. Speaker, and good morning to the people of Guam, Adai Talents, that's Palaxi to the Maxi. Mr. Speaker, I just want to rise in support of the amendment. In fact, if you go through the committee report, a lot of the testimony that was submitted from the very higher institutions that were seeking to give these benefits to the veterans that's what was stated in the testimony, was that they wanted reporting requirements so that we as a body could keep track of these potential benefits that could run as high as $1.2 million according to the testimony. So I think it's a very reasonable amendment, and it allows us to keep tabs on these benefits as they're issued, or and also looking at areas where the veterans or other eligible parties are directing their studies. So maybe we as a body, if we're short on this field or in certain professions, maybe we can go back and fine tool the effort here to provide these benefits based on the information that is submitted, would be submitted according to the amendment. So please support the amendment, Mr. Speaker. Si Diyos masi.
Thank you. On the amendment, any other senators wishing to speak on the amendment? Any other senators wishing to speak on the amendment? No other senators? Okay. It's AB 202L4-7 P7 SFP. It's on lines 4 to 7 on page 7. And it starts with, okay, number 2, submit a report to the Legislature in Guam. Got it? Any other senators wishing to speak on the amendment? Gentlelady from Bago Bay, ma'am, you recognize?
Si Diyos masi, Mr. Speaker. I think I just wanted to get a verification based on this amendment regarding the total amount of credits failed or withdrawn and payments received if applicable. List the type of undergraduates and graduate degrees that recipients enrolled in. I think, if I'm not mistaken, there's an accreditation requirement that at least 50% of major courses has to be from UOG or similar, unless the credits earned at the University of Guam is transferable back to the school where they didn't complete. So I don't know. I'm just trying to look at this effort, and guess I'll speak to the author of the amendment offline, but I just wanted to make sure to bring that up. Thank you.
Thank you. On the amendment, any colleague wishing to speak on the amendment? Any senator wishing to speak on the amendment? No senator wishing to speak on the amendment? Gentleman from Gio, sir, you want to speak on the amendment?
Mr. Speaker, as a veteran, if they just need somebody to tell the legislature how many credits and whatever degree they got, I have no problem with that one, but I'd be very careful. My colleagues want to question what a veteran have really served and what they've committed, and move on with this. It's about taking care of our veterans. And if you don't like that, then just say that you don't want to support veterans. And that's very simple. Thank you.
On the amendment. On the amendment. No senator wishing to speak on the amendment. Senator Parrish, you want to close?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Really, I think there was a little bit of a diversion, but this is about accountability of how the money is being spent. So, yeah, I take offense to what was said by the retiring speaker. And it's just really about making sure that, we're, holding accountable, creating accountability and transparency into how monies are being spent, especially at times when, budgets are being increased. So how are we spending this money? I think it's really critical that, considering that we don't have deep pockets here on our island, so it's really about just providing transparency to the legislature. Thank you.
Thank you. On the amendment, are there any objections to the amendment? No objections to the amendment, so ordered. Senator Parrish.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment, basically this amendment is on line 10, page 7. It adds a new section 56106B4 to the bill to read. So allot a number of seats to civilian legal residents with disabilities as defined in section 51302D of chapter 41, title 17, and to civilian legal residents who are considered low to moderate when adjusted for a number of persons and households and do not qualify for federal or local tuition assistance programs. To promote equitable access to post-secondary education for all residents, documentation shall be provided to prove that all options for federal or local tuition assistance have been fully exhausted. So so my concern is that we also need to think about the whole community. We have to look at so what I understand from this bill is that if there are seats available in a classroom, that we're opening it up to Manumco, we're opening it up to also veterans and their dependents and spouses. But we also need to serve those who cannot afford. We should also be mindful that we should include others that are working, minimum wage jobs and trying to pay for their education, as we know some in our community have, that need that assistance. So as we know that there is a GI Bill that that veterans and their dependents and spouses can have access to. That means there's less opportunities for those that are non-military but need the assistance. And so it's as an educator, I see that many people forgo higher education because they have to work and support their families. And I think we need to also provide this opportunity, or at least reserve some of these seats for those members in our community who are also providing service to their families. I know people specifically that have worked these jobs and have had paid for their education, have not had the ability to afford or have access to any kind of tuition assistance. For us to be an equitable society, I think it's important to reserve at least some of these seats for those members in our community that even have less access to resources, but given this opportunity can provide multiple rewards back to us. Yeah, I mean, we have, Guam has one of the highest rates of veterans. And what this amendment proposes to do is to provide some space for those that whose families have not served in the military, but are working to support their families, but have to forgo higher education. And with this possibility, they have this opportunity to elevate themselves. And what we want to do with education is uplift our community and elevate the community as a whole, and not just look at only one group in our population, although it is predominant. I think to create a fair society, we have to create fair policies. And I think this measure or this amendment aims to remind us that we serve everybody. We serve all families. And I look to my colleagues' discussion and support. Thank you.
On the amendment, gentleman from Barragata, sir, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just have a question to the author of this amendment in regards to, is this outside of, so this amendment is going to allow people, like, this doesn't even include veterans, so it has nothing to do with being a veteran. It's just saying that set aside some seats for civilian legal residents with disabilities as defined. So this has nothing to do with being a veteran.
Will the author of the amendment yield to the question?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
What I'm trying to understand is, Mr. Speaker, is the author trying to, or this amendment is going, as part of this bill, set aside seats for non-veterans, civilians who are legal residents in accordance with or defined in Chapter 41, subsection 41302.
Would you yield to that question?
I yield to the question. And so it's really about giving the commission the capacity to look at the holistic picture. So yes, it is associated with this program, but they have the authorization to see if there are others that need this seat. So it's really kind of creating this space, creating the space for these decisions to be made by the commission. Should there be others in our community that that are seeking this opportunity.
Thank you very much. Any other senators wishing to speak on the amendment? Any other senators wishing to speak on this amendment? Vice?
On the Paris Amendment, Speaker Blasio recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Speaker, while I recognize and I can see what the author of this amendment was willing to do, I question whether or not this amendment is actually germane to the bill. The bill seeks to provide benefits to veterans, okay, despite the number of veterans it's getting. What this amendment provides is going to add a new category that doesn't speak to the veterans. It speaks about the allotment of space in the classroom. My issue is, while we may want to be able to address this, I think this is the wrong vehicle to do this. This can be done in the form of another bill that will address the entire population and the population of the University of Guam, to include the veterans and those other individuals that did not serve. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I mean, again, I look at this and I'm trying to figure out how this speaks to the bill itself, and as far as for the veterans, I have to agree with the concern brought on by the previous speaker in that it does not address the veterans. It addresses a whole other population not addressed in this bill. So for that matter, in the ruling, with regard to germaneness of this amendment, I'm going to respectfully object and encourage the senator, the author of this bill, write a bill to be able to address this, but it doesn't belong in this bill. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There's been an objection. Anyone else on the Perez amendment? Anyone else would like to? Senator Barnett, you're recognized.
Just Vice Speaker, for the opportunity to rise in support of the amendment, which I believe is germane to the bill because the bill is discussing free college. And civilian legal residents with disabilities are often told they don't belong. We just heard it from the retiring speaker. I believe they do belong, Mr. Speaker. And I support the amendment, and I ask for the support of my colleagues as well. And I commend the author from Barragata for attempting to bring equity to this measure at a time where the University of Guam has been very open about their intention to increase tuition for everybody else. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. On the amendment, any other senators wishing to speak on the amendment? Gentlelady from Agate, ma'am, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also respectfully object to this amendment. I think when you just read the title itself, it is the Guam Veterans Higher Education Benefits Act. And I also share, the concerns from the author of this amendment in terms of we need to help our people with disabilities. But I also agree with you that this can be addressed in a separate bill that I would wholeheartedly support. Thank you.
Thank you. On the amendment, any other senators wishing to speak on the amendment? No other senators. Senator Perez, you can close.
I appreciate the discussion by my colleagues. Yeah, I think that it's still germane to the bill because, there are seats available oftentimes, right, when classrooms are not full, especially at this time, right? And I just want to make sure that, we're not closing the door on others. We're not discriminating based on whether you served in the military or not. And I think that is critical that we include this amendment into the bill to give the commission this opportunity to decide, is there a person with disabilities that needs to go to, who wants this seat? Are we blocking somebody because, they're more veterans or their dependents or spouses that have already taken up this seat? So, I think it's important to think about other people in our community who may be rejected based on their background or whether they have a disability or not. And so I'm thinking that to protect this bill, in a way this could support the bill, in fact, because is this bill now anti-discriminatory? Or is this bill discriminatory to people with those with disabilities, to people who don't fit this certain category? So I think this actually might be better for the bill in general. So I ask for my colleagues' support. Thank you.
Thank you. There hasn't been an objection to the bill, to the amendment. There's been an objection to the amendment. So therefore, all those in favor of the amendment, please indicate by raising your hand. 1, 2, 3. Amendment fails. Senator Perez, you still have the floor.
All right, thank you. This amendment I'd like to proffer is on line 22, page 6. Priority shall be given to beneficiaries who enroll in undergraduate or graduate degree programs that are designated by the Commission as a critical workforce shortage area, including but not limited to nursing, education, and engineering. These fields may be reassessed based on recommendations by the Commission when applicable. So I think it's self-explanatory. You know, we know we're in dire need of many different types of professionals, and if we can leverage these open slots to produce more of those professionals, I say let's do it. Let's put our money to that. And yeah, and I ask for my colleagues' support. Thank you.
On the amendment, AB 202 L22 P6 SFP, okay, amending line 22, starting on line 22 of page 6. On the amendment, gentleman from Barragata, sir, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to have to respectfully object to this amendment. I understand the intent. You know, again, I speak, you know, just speaking as a veteran and looking at the process to get things going when you get out of the military, a lot of times you're not going to know what it is. You know, most that get out of the military, they come home, they're not necessarily, because a lot of us join the Army. And even the Air Force, there's not, you know, to get the cool job, you're not getting into a skilled profession, right? And so, not saying that you can't come home and get into these fields, but most who go to college, especially in their first year, are usually a lot of times undeclared or in a major that they're not sure of. And so, you know, putting this amendment in, not that it forces them, but again, is giving priority to those. I don't think, you know, when a veteran is applying for benefits, to avail to these benefits, that they're not, you know, they're put at the back of the line because it's not one of these. And so I understand the intent, and I'm just going to have to object to this amendment, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. On the amendment, any other senators wishing to speak on the amendment? Okay. Senator Parrish, you want to close on the amendment?
So we have to understand this bill is a supplemental to the GI Bill, right? So, you know, we have to also, I think, when we make policy, we're also stating what is important to us as a society. And so this bill, I think it's important to support veterans, but in order to get this very limited local dollar, we're asking you to also support our community in these areas of critical need. Otherwise, we're losing the seat to somebody else who can fulfill these needs for our island. I don't see anything wrong with that, for seeking and investing in what we need. And I think this is important as a criteria for any kind of, you know, tuition waiver or even scholarships. Scholarships are often focused on the needs of our community. And so too should tuition waivers be. We shouldn't waver from that position, that we have to censor ourselves in our policies where we don't get what we need for our community. And that's the importance of this amendment, is if we're going to invest, and mind you, tuition might be going up. Tuition is impacted by this because, yeah, basically we're saying that we agree to, I mean, the bill can potentially impact tuition, and so if we're going to impact tuition, why not put it to a profession that we're going to get immediate impact and support in these critical areas? I think that's reasonable to expect from any program or scholarship. And this is something that we should not waver from. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. There has been an objection to this amendment. All those, already closed the, okay. There's been an objection to this amendment. All those in favor of this amendment, please indicate by raising your hand. Amendment fails. Senator Parrish, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This one amendment is to amend Section 56103B4 of the bill to read, shall not be applied to repeated courses, and it strikes out beyond one additional attempt. I think, as a former educator, we need to hold our students to higher standards and not expect them to fail a course. The whole objective is to make sure that they are going to pass this course, and why are we funding a failed course? So I think by striking this holds, we mean business, these educators are putting their efforts to students. We don't want them to fail. To expect them to fail a course is really undermining the point of education. And I ask for my colleagues' support.
The amendment is AB 202 L1-2 P5 SFP on lines 1 and 2 on page 5. Okay. Anybody wishing to speak on this amendment? No, nobody wishing to speak. Gentleman from EPAN, sir, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Rise in support of the amendment. It's very reasonable, and it's also consistent with the language in the bill that requires individuals receiving these benefits to maintain a grade point average of 2.5, I believe, for undergrad, and then 3.0 for graduate courses. So humbly ask the support of my colleagues. Sidos Masi, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Gentleman from Barragata, sir, you recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I get where I understand where the amendment, the proffer of the amendment is coming from, and we want to hold people accountable. I think, and I can speak from experience, because I actually failed accounting one time because I had a bad professor at the time. I didn't fail, I got a D, but I had to take the course again because in the program you have to get a C or higher, and I took a different instructor, and when we talk about because even with the GI Bill you're allowed to take it. I think one time as well. I don't think that's a. I think for me, I have no issue, or when we put this into the thing, it's inconsistent with the other federal benefits. I'm not saying that we want to be okay with people failing, but there are circumstances sometimes, and even as veterans, when we get out, they like to say that we in the military, everything has to be written at a third grade level. I'm not saying that we're dumb, but at the same time, there is a transition. And the attempt is not to allow them to take this for granted, but I think that's a fair ask, and I'm going to have to object to this amendment as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. There is an objection to the amendment. Anyone? Gentleman from Momoto Tumaiti, sir, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've listened to a lot of testimony back and forth. And honestly, I got to draw the line at state-sponsored mediocrity. I agree with one of the retiring speakers that the laws that we pass, they send a message to the community. And I have no problem supporting veterans, but I think that it sends the wrong message that if we're going to continue to fund failure, let's use those opportunities for people that are going to take it seriously, that are not going to fail, that are going to make the most of our opportunity, because that's what we want and want to encourage in Guam. We don't want to encourage people to go to college to find themselves for a year and go fail some classes on our dime. We want people that are serious about being part of our community and building it. And I think just endorsing this state-sponsored mediocrity is a mistake. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. On the amendment, any other senators wishing to speak on the amendment? Gentlelady from Zonia, ma'am, you're recognized.
Sidus Masi, Mr. Speaker, and I support this amendment. It's, again, these are, according to the bill, going to be benefits additionally provided beyond federal benefits. In other words, they have to maximize their federal benefits. That means they may have already sent a child to college with their benefits, and now not sure if the bill says they're going to use it for themselves now. And according to testimony from, I think, UOG or someone else, that they're saying a lot of this is going to go towards graduate programs. because they will have already exhausted their benefit in the undergraduate programs. And so we're funding graduate programs or fees, and this doesn't prevent them from getting the help with all the other courses. It just says for this one that you didn't pass, I think this is a very reasonable provision that is probably the same in all of our courses that we are providing scholarships for or waiving fees for. I don't think we can go in 5 times as seniors and get waivers if we're, I don't know. But I'm just saying, it's so very reasonable. It's saying if you have to repeat the course, then you pay that yourself. And I think it's very reasonable, and I support the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. On the amendment, any other senators wishing to speak on the amendment? Gentlelady from Tamuning, ma'am, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, so we have not discussed the elephant in the room on this, basically on this bill, because we know that we're hearing rumors that UOG is going to be raising their tuition fees. You know, after all this legislature has done to provide them funding to avoid any kind of increase, you know, now we're hearing these rumors that's coming from UOG. So here we are creating this legislation to provide, justly so, you know, I support our veterans, but we also have to be conscious about the rest of our community and the ability to allow those who are willing to go to school, get up, do whatever they can. I mean, they're not veterans that get a stipend, or they're not veterans that, you know, have the ability to, you know, to get a paycheck. Maybe a small one if they work at, you know, Wendy's or somewhere else. But these individuals who work very hard, who go to school to study, to ensure that they pass, that's the kind of people we want to support. Those are the ones that are asking for help. So if you have an individual who just takes advantage when we're in a desperate time right now, especially if they raise tuition, that they fail the class without good cause, then why are we going to allow them to repeat it again when there's a line of individuals out there waiting to have that same opportunity? Let the person go to the back of the line. Maybe that can be an idea. But right now, this definitely, if you're going to take this opportunity on the backs of UOG or GCC, then you need to go in there 120% and pass this. Get the grade. And this ensures that. It actually brings incentive. So I stand in support of this amendment. I think it's fair. The question I did have regarding the bill itself, it has rules and regulations, if I'm not mistaken. I'd like to ask the author of the legislation, is there anywhere in this bill that requires university and GCC to come up and create rules and regulations that something like this can be incorporated into the rules and regs?
I'm going to keep the discussion germane to the amendment.
Okay.
You have the ability to be able to do that when we go back.
Okay. The reason why I'm asking that,
No, I understand.
Yeah, you know, just so that if this doesn't get through, okay, so I thank you for the author of the bill to say, yeah, it's in there, it's in there. Well, that's good. So the listening audience can know that, okay, well, there's still that opportunity in case this amendment didn't pass. And if they're like, you know, those who are watching today, there's quite a bit. And they're listening to every word we're saying and making sure that their children, their grandchildren aren't left behind, and they have the same opportunities. So if they're rooting for this amendment and it doesn't get through, then at least there's an opportunity to address it in the rules and regs that's created for fairness. We're talking about fairness here. And again, don't forget the elephant in the room. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. On the amendment, gentleman from Tamuning, sir, you're recognized.
Jesus Masi, Mr. Speaker, and I rise to speak on this amendment, and if I can direct my colleagues and those that would review the bill to page 2 that discusses the intent. And while I do appreciate some of the conversation about pass and fail, I want to share a few thoughts. One is that it speaks to the fact that this is not merely an act of gratitude for a service of a veteran, but is designed also to provide for, enhance the skills of the individual to enter the workforce. Mr. Speaker, as you know, when we talk about veterans, veterans come from all different walks of life and specialty when they serve our country, when they lay their life down potentially for our freedom. But many times in the service, individuals are a veteran of a specialty that's very narrow in scope. And a lot of our veterans find themselves, not all veterans are veterans that serve 20 years and have a retirement. Some just did their 4. And for whatever reason, they're moving on in life. GI Bill, yes, qualifies for them as well, and other, opportunities. But you never know, as was discussed on this floor, how that's used. And this is an additional benefit as I review the bill and the intent of the bill. Mr. Speaker, in a time when we're asking ourselves in any way to upskill our people, to fill the workforce, to try to make Guam diversified and other things that are needed, we're not just talking about a benefit to a veteran. We're talking about a benefit to that veteran and a benefit to the people of Guam as well. Now, that veteran may have strived through that course, and it might not be because of laziness or inadequate ability to comprehend, but it may have fell short by even just a few points. I don't think the average individual would want to just jump into a course once again simply because to take up a seat in a classroom or pass the time. I would think that they would endeavor that they learned a little bit more and would try to thrive and be able to pass that course. I've taken another number of government tests, Mr. Speaker, as I have a number of different specialties, attention to merchant mariner officer licenses and operating vessels offshore, and a number of different capacities to include submersibles. And the way the government actually teaches a lot of courses and the way you prepare for passing government tests is you start out by you go through answers and questions to a test to learn the subject matter, which you already have learned as well, but the testing course. And sometimes when you start, Mr. Speaker, you fail miserably. You get a 50 or a 60. But by the time you actually start going through and reviewing, read more material, what did I miss? You get to the 80 and the 90, and it says, once you hit the 90 plus percentile of taking pre-test to a test or a course, you're ready to test for that course. Now, I'm not envisioning that university is going to see individuals just failing and failing and failing, but I'm going to avail of my benefit because I got nothing else to do today. I see this as an opportunity to ensure that there may be a second bite at this apple. And once again, I want to express that I believe expressly in the intent of this legislation. It's to take an individual that may have been a gunner or may have been a specialist, maybe a mechanic, but wants to move on beyond mechanics or wants to know how to run their own shop now, because of the fact that they're good at working on cars, but, maybe I want to own a shop and I need to learn business things. I need to learn other things that are going to help me be exactly what this bill calls for. So I'm not promoting mediocrity. I don't think by more than likely not voting for this amendment over the objection. But I really wanted to see if we could bring us back to where I think essentially what this bill wants to do, and many of the points that you raised as well, Mr. Speaker. One other thing, and I've been working very closely with the University of Guam on this, because I know I was one of those who was heavily criticized for advocating for their additional funding. And there's been significant, outcry in the community. I understand that. Every institution should be scrutinized. The one thing I want to share, Mr. Speaker, is in the meetings that I've had with them, I've told them, you really need to push your enrollment. You need to get your numbers up, because every 100, I believe, students is about $1 million more to the university, and they're teetering around 2,600 to 2,700 right now. But Mr. Speaker, they understand that, and they're working on it, and their new finance guy is really intent on working that and pushing it really hard. We all know him really well, Dr. Ricky Hernandez. But the thing is this. They do admit also that there's space in these classes. A lot of these classes are not full right now. And I'll tell you, these veterans that will be upskilling, these individuals that will take the opportunity to avail of this benefit, I don't think they're taking away from anybody's time. In fact, them being in those classrooms may be mentorship opportunities for the students who are going there. Hey, what are you doing here? Well, I got out of the military. I need a new skill. I need to do something better with my life, and this affords me that opportunity. So I don't see it as in my opinion, I don't see it as a subtraction from any other striving individual or whatever else it is. I see it as the fact that it may, like I said, take another bite at the apple. I don't see it as a habitual thing, and I think the university will be cognizant of that to maybe even form internal policies. But just wanted to share those things because I was going to speak like that on the main bill. I still may speak like that on the main bill, but the fact of the matter is that's the way I see it. I see really this is not just because you're a veteran and you get this benefit. I really see this as the fact that we have such a void in our workforce right now, and we have people that can upskill. Particularly, this is not just UOG, this is GCC. So thank you for the opportunity to offer a few thoughts on this amendment and kind of merging into the bill, Mr. Speaker. Susan Smasi.
Thank you. On the amendment, gentleman from Talavovo, say your recognition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I initially wasn't going to jump up and talk about this amendment, but I wanted to reflect on the author's experience that he shared with us on this amendment. Coming off of being an adjunct for the last 13 years at the University of Guam, I've seen a lot of students that were very similar, had similar experiences as the bill's author. And being that second bite at the apple so that they could pass or, in most cases, graduate from the University of Guam. I agree that with the bill's author that I don't think anyone in this room wants to block folks from this chance to maybe look at, again, maybe it was a bad situation at home. Maybe they did get a D. But I think this amendment, we're just, with all due respect, Mr. Speaker, I think that I object because I think that there's many, many students that we're going to be putting out, or veterans that just want to finish their degree. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. On the amendment. On the amendment. Any other senator wishing to speak on the amendment? Senator Parrish, you can close, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you to my colleagues for their debate. But being an educator, I think it's important to not lower the standards for education. We've been through this road before where we've seen policies try to reduce the standards for teachers. And now we're basically, as one of the retiring speakers said, we're endorsing mediocrity. And I don't want to support those policies. I don't support those policies where we're lowering the standards of education and on the backs of our taxpayers. We know the GI Bill is available for 10 years for qualifying veterans and their dependents. And so this is a supplement to the GI Bill. And what this amendment does is to ensure that we're getting the most from the very limited amount of local funds that we have available. That is dwindling, by the way. Yeah, so it does send a message. It sends a message to our community that we are okay with mediocrity. And many in the educator field is trying so hard to lift our people up. Lift our people up from whatever position, stage they're at. And sending these mixed messages is not helping our educational system. When we talk about trying to retain educators, the environment in which they are in has a big impact on whether to retain them. And as a body, to endorse mediocrity and send these mixed messages to our community that it's okay to fail. You can just try again, but when you become a doctor, is it okay to fail? When you become an engineer, is it okay for the building to fail? Because, oh, you can do it again? No, you don't get a second chance at these things. We have to hold our people to a higher standard of education. And by endorsing mediocrity, we are not helping our community. We are making it harder. So as an educator, I ask for the support for this amendment. And for all educators out there, I'm fighting for you. I'm fighting for what education and the purpose of education is for. Stu Masi.
Thank you. There's been an objection to the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment, please indicate by raising your hand. Amendment fails. Senator Parrish, you got one more?
Okay, this last amendment is to strengthen the bill. To amend the bill in section 56104A3 to read, provide documentation to prove that they've exhausted all eligibility for any federal veterans educational benefits that provide tuition assistance prior to receiving a waiver under this chapter. So I think this is just one of those safeguards to ensure that there is documentation to back it up. You did apply for the benefits, you did exhaust your benefits, and you received the benefits. Now you can get the supplemental benefit. So that's what this amendment proposes to do. And I ask for my colleagues' support.
On the amendment, any other senators wishing to speak on the amendment? AB 202 L18-20 P5 SFP. It's amending line 18 to 20 on page 5. Any senator wishing to speak on the amendment? Senator Bora.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think when the process to get federal aid, the process to get to apply for veteran benefits, it's already done through that, because when you come in and claim you're a veteran, like the process is you have to submit the application so that the school can certify your federal benefits. I'm assuming, and just to clarify with the proffer of this amendment, they're saying that she's requesting the veteran be the one to provide documentation, when I think the certification is already done through the financial benefits office at the university, both at GCC and UOG.
So you're posing a question?
So my question is the intent of the author for the veteran to go and get the certification that they've exhausted their benefits, which usually the school is the one who provides that certification, or documentation, because they have to get certified by the school.
Author willing to yield to that question? I guess the question is on the assumption.
I think can you clarify school? What does he mean by school?
Mr. Speaker, the University of Guam or GCC, where they would try to avail of these benefits.
Okay, so yeah, I'm just amending what the bill states, or proposing to amend the bill what the bill states, and under 56104A 3, it states, so to be eligible, basically the section is, to be eligible for and maintain benefits under this chapter, a person must, and then in 3 it says, attest that they have exhausted all eligibility for any federal veterans educational benefits that provide tuition assistance prior to receiving a waiver under this chapter. So that's what the bill states. But I think, how do they know necessarily? I mean, anybody can come up to the registrar and attest it, right? So what is the proof? That's basically, what is your proof that you did do all of these things? You did exhaust the GI Bill, the 10 years of the GI Bill. You did exhaust any other federal subsidies you received, and now you want this supplemental benefit. So it's really about ensuring that the documents are there. It would help facilitate the process for getting this supplemental benefit. Attesting is by honor system, right? So anybody can come up to the registrar and say, yeah, I attest to it, and then find out later they never were part of the military. So I think it's just one of those safeguards that you have documentation. We need documentation for a lot of things in our society, whether we go to vote, when we pay everyday things, right? Sometimes they ask for our ID. So I think it's just a reasonable thing to have documentation before receiving, this benefit, the supplemental benefit. So that's what this proposal does, is to ensure that the documentations are available for the university to receive, right? Otherwise, they don't automatically go out and gather information on the residents. Upon, let's say and even if they apply to the university, doesn't necessarily mean that they provide the information that they've exhausted the federal subsidies. So they don't necessarily automatically have this information. So that's what this amendment does, is ensures that before you get the supplemental benefit, do you have everything that's required as the bill expects? So that's what this amendment does.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think, to just respond to the concern, I guess, even as outdated as UOG can be sometimes with their process, if it's one thing that they've been very good at, even in 2013 when I first got out of the military, or 2011 actually, and went through the process, like there's a certification process that the university has to go through for veteran benefits. And because this is requiring the university to provide supplemental benefits on top of it's already going to be part of the application process for financial aid. And so, we're asking if anybody who has ever dealt with even right now, for me to try and get into VA, the ID.me thing, I've been trying for months. I think this is going to add an additional roadblock. I think it's going to be I know it's going to be a lot more easier for the university to certify whether or not these benefits are and so requiring if this is trying to require the veteran to go out and get documentation, this is going to create a lot of problems. But I am confident that the university, especially because there's more money to the GI Bill and the post 9/11, that they're going to get a certification of benefits from the VA before even trying to exhaust this. So I'm going to object to this, because this is just adding another extra step for a veteran to go through a painful process to get documentation from the VA to ensure, when it would be a lot easier for the school to be the one to get that certified. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Thank you. On the amendment, Any other senator wishing to speak on the amendment? General lady from the Georgia, ma'am, you recognize.
With the same faith that the previous speaker has and the University of Guam's financial assistance department, which is extremely competent, I believe that they will require this and that they will help them to obtain this documentation if it's necessary. And I think it should be necessary because this just clarifies. If it doesn't say, it says they must provide documentation to prove they've exhausted all eligibility. That's what we require of all the other students. We've just done that recently with the, that they were requiring them to take FAFSA. We're requiring them to exhaust all of that before they get scholarships. And so I think this is just going to be, I don't think there's a big difference, except that instead of swearing that you have, you're just going to give the documents that you have, or UOG is going to help you to get those documents. You're going to give them waivers so that they can do that. And I think that this is very reasonable. This is what we require for everybody else, is documentation. So I think there's no problem in this amendment. I think this is reasonable. Again, veterans do not expect that if they have to prove something that they're not going to bring documents. They're very attuned to that. So I think this is just to make it consistent so that there is some kind of accountability. And this is on the university's part as well, because their hands are going to be tied if we tell them, just you must take an attestment versus whether you can see documents that say otherwise. So I think this is a good protection for the University of Guam as well. Mr.
Gentleman from EPEN, sir, you recognize.
Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to rise in support of the very reasonable amendment, which actually just adds an additional layer of accountability for this process by amending language that's already included in the bill. We're just going from an attestation to providing relevant documentation, which I just want to say, Mr. Speaker, these documents are already going to be part of what, whether it's a veteran, their dependent, their spouse, or someone who's just a regular college applicant, for lack of a better term. These are documents that they're already going to have. And speaking with some of my veteran friends who are interested in going to university or who have already gone to university, it's 2026. Many of these documents are available on the VA online portal or on other avenues online. So I don't think we're creating an additional burden for the veteran. And I think there's a flip side to this, Mr. Speaker. We wanted this documentation to be provided to really watch out for anybody who's trying to apply for these benefits, which are benefits we are trying to give on top of benefits that the federal government's giving. We don't want anyone who has been rejected for these benefits to check a box and then avail of the benefits we're trying to give locally when, for whatever reason, they couldn't qualify for the federal benefit, Mr. Speaker. So I think it's just very reasonable. There's an old saying I've heard here in this hall many times: trust but verify. So again, I just humbly ask my colleagues, despite the objection, to support the amendment. It's very reasonable. I think this is, again, it's equity. All the students who are going to apply at the University of Guam, whether they're veterans, their dependents, their spouses, or anybody else, should kind of go through the same process. And anybody who goes to college knows that providing that documentation is just part of the process, Mr. Speaker. Sizos Masi.
On the amendment. On the amendment, General Lady from Tumuning, ma'am, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand in support of this. I mean, let's clarify it, make it clear. We all know working and creating legislation and laws, we try to cover up these loopholes that are that actually we create, and then we go to the civil commission or law commission review to correct some of the mistakes that we make, because we don't make it clear enough to be understood exactly what the intent is. And I'm sure the author of the bill understands the intent, but to clarify it is another thing. So if I'm not mistaken, there is a veterans office at UOG. Okay, I'm seeing him say yes, it is. Okay, and at that area, that's where they get their DD 214, if I'm not mistaken. If you're a veteran, there's a DD 214 that you have to provide when going to UOG to prove that you're a veteran. So just that alone, that's required according to a constituent who's a veteran, who actually took advantage of going to UOG or GCC, not UOG, it was GCC actually, that they had to provide a DD 214. So I know a test can broaden the perspective, but this is clear and precise. So when anyone's reading this, they understand provide documentation to prove it. It's very simple. So I'm asking, at least the author of the bill to, withdraw his objection, because it's very simple. This DD 214 is not an assessment. It's not assessed, but a DD 214, which is usually required, is a documentation, which will prove it. So it's very simple. It's very minimal. So thank you.
Thank you. On the amendment, gentleman from Momoto to Mike Teixeira.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of this amendment. I think we need to stop infantilizing our veterans. These are adults who have served, who are capable. They can go get their paperwork. This is not an unreasonable ask. And I don't know why this is so problematic. We ask for documentation all the time for all other things, but suddenly veterans are too helpless to go get proper documentation. No, I don't buy that. Let's stop infantilizing our veterans and have them provide the proper documentation and have some accountability on this program. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. On the amendment, any other senators wishing to speak on the amendment? Senator Parrish, willing to close?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the discussion by my colleagues, and yeah, it's just something, a part of being in the society is you have to show proof. Before we give you money, what is the proof? Like we always, we want to make sure we're not scammed. Anybody can potentially pose, right, and get these benefits, and then we find out later it was our mistake. We have to eat the cost, because it does cost money. Let's not forget that it's going to cost money for this, the time that the professors put into, reviewing the work, the time of, the time of invested in this. We can never buy back time either. And it'll be harder to get back the investment if we didn't do our due diligence. I mean, are we throwing due diligence out the door? I don't think that's a good practice. Yeah, it's really a simple amendment, and I'm kind of boggled by the objection to it. Yeah, if you have the documentation to show that you fulfilled your 10 years of getting assistance through the GI Bill, we want to let, this is also, we're broadcasting it. Like, okay, get your documents ready. It shouldn't be too hard. Well, how hard is that? You have your documents ready to go because you want to continue your education. Yeah, especially if you're going to school, you have to have everything organized. So this is something, a practice that should already be embedded in any student, any prospective student, is to have your files, have your documents, have all your research done, to not have this capability, it speaks volumes. Like, okay, so what does this mean about engaging in education? You have to be prepared for education when you're in the classroom. Why not be prepared before you enter the classroom? This is just common practice, common sense. And yeah, I can't imagine the UOG is going to ask for this anyway, because I'm sure they're going to want to do their due diligence. In the fiscal report, they estimate at $1.2 million. It's going to cost the UOG $1.2 million right now. So I'm sure they're going to look at they're going to make sure they're not going to be spending more, especially money they may not have come budget time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There has been an objection to the amendment. Okay? There has been an objection to the amendment. So all those in favor of the amendment, please indicate by raising your hand. Amendment fails. Colleagues, it is a little bit past 12, it's 12:05. We're going to go ahead and take a lunch break and be back here at 2 p.m. Okay, and then from here, we'll go to Senator Teddy. You have an amendment. Okay, 2 p.m. We're in recess.